Hello again. Welcome to the third and final hour of the Gene Burns program. It is 9:09, and we are here until 10 o'clock, at which time John Rothman takes over 10 to 1. John will drop by at the end of this hour to tell us what he's going to be talking about tonight in his program, and I'll be back in the morning from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. We'll be talking food, wine, and travel on Dining Around with Gene Burns. We hope that you will join us for that discussion. We always have a great time on Dining Around. That's 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Tomorrow, Saturday, and each Saturday here on KGO. Well, Sunday is Father's Day. And over the years, when I could fit the subject in, I like to take the final hour before Father's Day, which is this hour, to talk about our fathers and their sayings. I've discovered over the years, from my own father and from the fathers of many of my friends, that some of the pithiest things that get said in our lifetime get said by our fathers. They say things that are hilariously funny, often malapropic, and unforgettable. Now, my father died in 1994 at the age of 83. My mother passed away earlier at the age of 69. My father is the person responsible for my being a talk show host. In fact, my parents are both responsible for me having the job I have so enjoyed over my lifetime. From my mother, I got intellectual curiosity, a love for reading, and an intellectual bent. She was a college graduate. From my father, a seventh-grade dropout, I received the gift of gab, the gift of enunciation, the gift of pronunciation. My father, you see, didn't talk. He emoted. My father, incidentally, if my father wanted to say something to my siblings and myself, I'm the eldest of 6 kids. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. One brother has passed away, my brother Tom. But if Dad wanted to say something to us that he thought was important, he would not address it to us. He would give a speech to my mother at a time when he knew we'd be listening, which was almost always at mealtime, at the breakfast table, lunch table, or dinner table. They would always, my father's speeches would always start out, "You see, Gladys," my mother's name was Gladys, "you see, Gladys, these children don't understand. They want to go camping. Gladys, help me make them understand that no sensible human being gives up a feather bed for the ability to sleep on the hard, cold ground. Will you help me, Gladys? Explain that to these children?" They don't seem to understand. I don't know why my father thought that he needed to, maybe he thought he had to rehearse these speeches on my mother. He was just making up time. So rather than rehearse the speeches with my mother and then turn and give them to us, he decided to collapse the whole thing so he would make it shorter. My father's famous line at the dinner table was, "You will not listen to the words of wisdom." Whenever anything stupid happened, water got spilled, any simple accident occurred, jam fell off a knife onto the tablecloth, my father could be counted upon to begin his speech. He'd start, "You will not listen to the words of wisdom. If you would sit up straight," he'd adjust himself in the chair, sitting up as straight as he could, "and address the table like this," holding out his hands, putting his hands on the edge of the table. These kinds of things would not happen. You would not tip over the water or drop jelly on the tablecloth from the jar. I don't know how many times I heard, "You will not listen to the words of wisdom." My father did not like his mother-in-law, my mother's mother. They had a cottage at a small lake in western New York. My father dreaded going to the cottage because my grandmother always wanted to have meals outside on the picnic table. Well, it was a cottage on a lake. Had a great outdoor fireplace my grandfather had built. And she'd get my grandfather, whose name was Gene, for whom I was named, to build a fire, and we'd cook hot dogs and hamburgers, and she'd make salads, and my mother'd make some salads, and we'd spread things out on the picnic table. We had both my grandmother and mother were home canners. They canned pickles, and we always had great pickles and relishes and things to eat. My father hated it. He hated it. He'd say to her, "Peg, why must you abandon your home where it is comfortable and there are no flies and mosquitoes to sit outside where bugs can bother you while you're trying to eat your dinner? Why do you do that, Peg?" Of course, my grandmother didn't think that anything she decided ought to be questioned by her son-in-law, so she used to ignore him, in which case my father, of course, would then address who? Of course, my mother. "Gladys, why does your mother?" And on it would go. Well, I'm sure that you have sayings of Chairman Dad. Our fathers are all different, each from the other. They grow up in different generations, but they're fathers. Somewhere there exists a book, a handbook, on how to be a father. My father read it. Your father read it. Maybe if you're a father, you read it. So you know how to behave in these circumstances. And I'm happy to have you share with us the more outrageous of your father's sayings, the sayings of Chairman Dad. In fact, Karen Reed, who is our engineer in the first hour of this program each night, is driving home. She's on her way home to Petaluma as we speak. And is listening because she loves this hour of the program each year that we do. But before she left, she reminded me of two of her father's favorites, which she has shared with us before. First of all, her father once said to her, "Karen, when you die, be sure to leave your brain to medicine. They don't get many unused brains." And the other thing her father used to say was, "Karen, be sure to eat the string bean and pea on your plate," which would, of course, the double entendre would cause Karen to dissolve in paroxysms of laughter as she was thinking about her father making funny at the dining table. The sayings of Chairman Dad. I invite you to submit yours. 808-0810, the telephone number. We invite you to join the conversation on the Gene Burns program. It is 9:17 on KGO. KGO time now is 9:22 on the Gene Burns program. Hour number 3 for this Friday, the 17th of June. We invite you to join the conversation. Mel in San Francisco, you're on KGO.
My father, Michael Howell, a great jazz musician who played for the late Dizzy Gillespie, said one of his sayings was, if you go to an event or a party or something like that, leave when you're having a good time. Don't wait for things to go down. Leave when you're having a good time. And the second thing he would say on losing out in a relationship, he would say, you can't lose something you never had.
Uh-huh.
And then the third thing was, once years ago, we were having some concern about our house. We were facing losing it. And he said in the end, it's just wood. I knew he was losing his mind.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, those were the ones.
Oh, that's terrific. I appreciate it, Mel. Thank you very much. Every father has them, and they're classics. My father had his own language. he spoke in his own language. I'll never forget the day he told me. Well, first of all, my father would get up in the morning and make a couple of pots of coffee. And I didn't make a mistake. I didn't see pots. He'd make a couple of pots of coffee. He'd get up 2 hours before he had to go to work. And he'd sit there and talk to the television news. First time I heard this, I woke up and my father was talking. I wondered who he was talking to downstairs. He was talking to the television news. And he was raising hell about something Governor Rockefeller had done. Nelson Rockefeller was governor of New York. We lived in New York at that time. And he was raising hell about it. But he forgave the governor because he told me later in life, because he said the governor, on his pension, the governor had passed some kind of a pension reform, and he had made it retroactive. So as long as he had made it retroactive, my father got more money. What he meant, of course, was retroactive. 808-0810, the telephone number. Sylvia in Vallejo, you're on KGO.
Hey, Gene.
Hey.
I would just like to say my dad would say, there were a couple of things that he would used to say, but he would say, when you read with understanding.
Right.
And then the second thing he would say, when you be driving, when you enter the freeway, he would say, drive like you mean it. Because his point was, don't poke around, get on the freeway.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you just made me think of something about my dad, because I became a coffee connoisseur because of my dad, because I was a little girl, and I would be the only one who would get up after he would go to work early in the morning.
Right.
And he would leave this little bit of coffee in his cup.
And you drink the coffee.
And I do.
All right. Okay.
To this day,
All right.
doing that coffee,
Oh.
and on Saturday mornings, when he was alive, every Saturday we would have coffee.
All right. Yeah.
Happy Father's Day to all.
Thanks a lot. These are really happy memories. The sayings of Chairman Dad. We invite you to give us some of your father's finest sayings, whether he's still with us or gone. Doesn't matter. The record is made, and dads say the darndest things, as they say. And my father, as I've indicated to you, my father didn't get along with his mother-in-law, my mother's mother. They were at loggerheads constantly until she died. She died first. He died later. And we were driving to the lake cottage one day. My grandmother was driving. First of all, that would irritate my father that he wasn't driving. But she had the car, so she was driving. It was her car, so she was driving. And she had a St. Christopher statue set on her dashboard. St. Christopher in those days was to guard against all harm coming to you, and so you wouldn't have an accident or whatever, I guess. I couldn't stop laughing one day when he couldn't take it any longer, and he turned to her and he said, Peg. She said, what, Bob? What? Peg, don't you know that St. Christopher jumps out at 50? Because she was going 65 miles an hour, barreling down the highway. 808-0810, the telephone number. More conversation ahead on KGO. Thank you, Michael. KGO time is 9:33 on the Gene Burns program. This is our final hour before Father's Day. We are talking about the sayings of Chairman Dad. Every father has them, his pet sayings, some hilariously funny, some poignant, and I'm sure you have some of yours. Julian in Danville, you're on KGO.
Jim, thank you. We lost our father last year in September.
Yes, sir.
But he was an amazing man. And when I dropped out of college, he told me, he said, if you want to be a bum, but get your degree so that when you're tired of being a bum, you can get up and get a job.
Very practical men, these fathers, you know?
Yeah. You know, the other thing he said also was never compromise your beliefs, never justify your faults, and never jeopardize your family.
Amen. How many children did he have?
There's 4 of us, and I have 4 kids, and it's amazing that, and they're all 4 years apart, and my parents got incrementally wiser for each child I had. I realized they were kind of smart.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I had another kid, I was like, okay. Yeah. Well, they kind of knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? The older you get, the smarter they are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I appreciate your call, Julian. Thank you. 808-0810, the telephone number. It's KGO. KGO time now is 9:37 on the Gene Burns program, 8080810. Antoine in Brentwood, you're on KGO.
Hey, Gene, it's funny. My father and my mother, they met when they were, I guess they were married at 15 and at 17.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was born in 1929, and my mom, this sequence is later. So they died on Mother's Day. I buried my father on Mother's Day and my mom on the 4th of July of the same year. But they both had these really, really, I want to call them broken down English sayings. Like my dad used to tell me I was never punctual, and I was always rushing. So he always tell me, the hurrier you hurry, the behinder you get.
Smart advice. Yeah.
And then he also had one. I hate to say now, it's country people, so they would say something like, a cow uses the bathroom fast, but not long. And he was trying to tell me that whatever you rush through in life, you will not be doing it very long.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, it was pretty good parents.
Yeah. No, they sound terrific. People like that, my own parents had that, and my father certainly had that sort of touch of folk wisdom. You know, they just
exactly.
pick.
You know, because when you think about it, the hurrier you hurry, the behinder you get.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can say for it, you know, and I just keep moving on.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely. My thought.
I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. You know, that comes out of the Pennsylvania Dutch country as well. That's one of those sayings among the Amish in the Pennsylvania Dutch country. The faster I go, the behinder I get. Is one of the sayings that comes out of the Dutch country as well. 8080810, the telephone number. We invite you to join the conversation. Let's see, Marilyn in where? Mountain View, you're on KGO.
Oh, hey, hi. Well, that's interesting. My husband, Patrick, is from Pennsylvania, too.
Oh, is that right? Oh, terrific.
Uh-huh. So, well, anyway, my parents divorced, and so my natural father, Larry, just sort of bailed out on me. So my maternal grandfather, Chester Banks, was the main influence in my life, you know, as far as a father figure goes. So from his wife, my grandmother, I got being a foodie. She's a professional cook.
Oh.
And from him, I got a lot of his outspokenness. In fact, my mother Shirley felt I should have gone into radio myself.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, two of his favorite sayings was he knew that women wanted the nice things in life, and we wanted to be spoiled and taken care of. So he always said to me, marry for money and work for love, and that all of us women were sitting on our fortune. So sell it or sit on it, but never give it away for free.
Good for him. Yeah, exactly. The wisdom of Chairman Dad.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, terrific. All right, I appreciate your call. Thanks a lot. I don't know where dads get them, but they collect them. They're right out of Central Casting. Some of these sayings, they go back a long way. 8080810, the telephone number. We invite you to join the conversation as we discuss the matter of the sayings of Chairman Dad. Roger in Alameda, you're on KGO.
Hi, Gene.
Hi.
My dear father died last July. He was 89 years old, and I'll tell you, I miss him more each month that goes by.
Oh, for sure.
Him and my mother were married 63 years. They had 6 children, and they went through all the joys and pain that will bring. And when they were about 70 years old, I heard my mom ask him, Harold, if I were to die, would you get married again? And very quickly and very straightforwardly, he said, what do you think I am, stupid or something? And I never knew if that he meant I couldn't replace you or I wouldn't go through this hell again in a million years.
Yeah, really, he's smart enough to give an answer that had many interpretations.
And then he had one more saying one time. When I went to parochial school from kindergarten through 8th grade. And when I was 13 years old, I went to a public high school, and I sat down with him that year and said, Dad, I really don't believe in God. It doesn't make any sense to me. I really don't want to go to church anymore. And I expected him to hit the roof, and instead he calmly urged me to keep going to church. So I said to him, Dad, I really don't believe in God. Do you really believe in God? And his response was, I don't know, but it's a good idea to go to church just in case.
Yeah, no, you know what? My grandfather, my mother's father, we were Roman Catholic, and they used to go to the 8 o'clock Mass on Sunday. which is kind of early. Yeah. And I would remember going with my grandfather and my grandmother to the Mass at St. Anne's, and he would drive. This is a small town of 15,000 people in western New York, and he would drive by. Of course, everybody knew everybody in the town, and he would drive by these homes of people he knew. And when he would drive by the homes of friends of his who were Protestant, he couldn't help himself. He would turn to my grandmother and say, "You know, Peg, I hope to God we're right, because if we're wrong and they're right, they get to sleep a hell of a lot longer than we do." It was great, just great.
You know, Gene, one of the greatest gifts that a child can have is a loving father and mother, and I'm so grateful for the ones I had.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I appreciate your call. I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. The greatest gift that a child gets is the love of his parents. And it's just a remark, and it's something you don't forget ever. Even if you have a rough go with your parents, as some of us do from time to time, it ultimately washes away, and the happy memories remain. 808-0810, the telephone number, 943 on KGO. KGO time now is 9:47 on the Gene Burns program, 808-0810. It is our final hour before Father's Day. In this hour, we talk about the sayings of Chairman Dad. Everybody's father has his pet sayings, and we invite you to call us with yours at 808-0810. I'll be with you until 10. John Rothman in 10 to 1 here on KGO, and I'll be back in the morning, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. We'll talk food, wine, and travel on Dining Around. Joe in Oakland, you're on KGO.
Hi, Gene. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
My dad, he passed 22 years ago this month.
Uh-huh.
And he started teaching in the old country at the age of 14.
Really?
Yes, under the old British colonial system.
Uh-huh.
And the saying I never forget from him is he always said, "Low aim is crime."
Is that right?
That's right. If you go to school, whatever you do the best that you can.
Yeah.
Because low aim is crime.
Yeah.
The other saying that I never forget is he'd get into an argument with my mother, and he'd turn around and say, "Well, you know, Joyce, a book never cursed me out. A book never made me feel bad about myself." He loved books, and that's why he was a teacher, and he passed it down to me. I have a reverence for books because I never forget those sayings.
Where is the old country?
The old country is Guyana, South America.
Oh, Guyana, South America. Oh, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And when did he emigrate to the United States?
He emigrated in the 70s.
In the 70s. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in the mid-70s.
Wow.
But those two sayings, I never forget.
No, nor will you ever forget them. I appreciate your call, Joe. Thank you. Yeah, the sayings of Chairman Dad are things you don't forget. They are burned into your consciousness. You don't even have to make an effort to remember them. You can't forget them. They're the sayings of Chairman Dad. It's not possible to forget that kind of thing. Kate in Concord, you're on KGO.
Gene.
Hi.
I just wanted to add my favorite saying of Chairman Dad. And when I was a teenager, when I would break up with the boyfriend of the day,
right.
And if I was feeling blue, he would always say to me, "The best cure for a broken relationship is a new one."
Ah, that's a very wise point of view, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it at the time, but then, of course, the next one would it would be.
Yeah, right.
It would come home to me then.
Yeah, sure, of course, and obviously, and well, that's true. How very and where do you think he got that? I mean, that's just the way he lived his own life.
I think it must have been.
Yeah. Well,
I wanted to say that if he were still with us, he would have been 96 years old today.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Well, it was his birthday.
Happy birthday to Dad. 96. Yeah. I appreciate the call, Kate. Thank you very much. Yeah, my father, Robert John, had he lived, he would have been 100 this year on the 13th of May. but he did not. Unfortunately, he died at 83. But he had a very full life and a very productive life, and we were thrilled that he did. Let's see. Tom in Menlo Park, you're on KGO.
Hello, Gene.
Hello.
My daddy said, if you make a mistake, you're a foodie,
yeah.
And my daddy said, if you make a mistake at a restaurant and order up too much food, don't make a second mistake and eat it all.
Ah, very wise, actually.
And another thing he told me, he said, women are like, this has made my mom real happy.
Right.
He said, women are like streetcars. If you miss one, there'll be another one along in a minute.
Oh, I'm sure that made your mother feel real proud. Yeah.
And he said, and after 11 o'clock, they don't come as often, but they're a lot faster.
oh my God.
I never quite understood that when I was a kid.
That's okay. Those are kids don't need to understand those kinds of things. That's terrific.
And then one thing, as a kid, I'd say, huh.
Right.
I'd say something, huh.
Right.
He'd say, huh, hell, pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. But
another thing you could say is that, huh, if you kick a pig in the rear end, it makes the same noise.
Huh. Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate your call. Thanks. I must say, your father actually had wisdom beyond his years when he talked about if you make a mistake and order too much in a restaurant, don't make a second mistake and eat it. We're dealing with that today. In all candor, obesity is rampant in our culture because we grew up in the Clean Plate Club. We grow up with mothers for whom food was love, and if you didn't clean your plate, you didn't love your mother. So you had to clean your plate, or if you didn't clean your plate, it was an insult to the starving people of pick a country, whatever the country was then, instead of realizing that children ate until they were full, and when they were full, there was no point in getting them to eat anymore. So your father understood that long before the smart folks got onto it. 9:52 on the Gene Burns program here on KGO. Well, it's 9:57. We're almost out of time, but let's give Max in San Jose the last say. Max, you're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Burns.
Good evening.
My father died at 81 in November, and he came from a heritage of the western states, Oklahoma and Texas, before there was a state there, and Pennsylvania Dutch from his father, and three particular things remind me of him as I think about them. He was always referring to people who were somewhat unpredictable, or he would say they're as unpredictable as a squirt from a grapefruit. He would advise against worrying, and he would say, never bleed before you're cut.
Right.
And one that I could never quite figure out how it applied to anything, but he liked to use it, and he would say, never squat with your spurs on.
Oh, well, yeah, for obvious reasons. I appreciate the call, Max. Thank you. And Max gets the last word on the sayings of Chairman Dad. Happy Father's Day to all you dads, and be sure to tell Dad Happy Father's Day. I'm finished until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. when we'll talk food, wine, and travel. Right now, though, John Rothman is here to tell us what he'll be talking about from 10 to 1 this evening.
Gene, I look forward every year to this hour that you have just done. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Just great. Well, in the first hour of our program, we're going to talk about the fact that two top lawyers lost a debate with Barack Obama there in the Justice Department. They told him, in fact, the War Powers Act should be invoked, and we are at war. We're going to talk about that. In the second hour of the program, like you, we'll have a little Father's Day fun. Joe Sutton has just written a wonderful book. It's a short book, but just great. The Year the Giants Won the Series. And it's all about how he and his son shared the Giant victory.
Oh.
So we'll enjoy that. And in the last hour of the program, we are going to return to a serious topic. Are you a member of AARP?
I am.
Well, they took a stand on Social Security today, which has raised all kinds of hackles, and they sort of retreated, but they raise a number of very interesting questions, so we will deal with that. And by the way, I joined AARP as soon as I turned 50, which is when you're entitled to do it.
Absolutely, I did too.
Well, Gene, have a splendid weekend.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be listening tomorrow morning, and have a great Father's Day.
Yes, thank you. You too. Thanks, John. It is almost...